If you're like me, you're probably a little perplexed about what is going on in the crypto market right now. In this video, I want to dissect what's going on with Bitcoin, Ethereum, altcoins, and I want to talk about where we actually are in this cycle, what this means for Bitcoin shooting up to 89K from around 67, 68,000 very quickly, and how this compares to previous cycles. Look at a couple indicators and what we're likely to see moving forward and what people should be careful of. Because what I'm noticing, and I use Twitter quite a lot, and obviously my Twitter is filled with a lot of crypto information and a few other platforms. I think on one hand, you have people calling for 100K straight away, just saying that we're going to run to 100K and then finally correct. Other people saying that we're finally going to see a little correction because we've just shot through all-time highs. So it's a little hard to understand what's actually going to unfold moving forward, especially because there's so much bullish hype in the media right now. We have Trump got elected, and then Bitcoin might be added to the Treasury, the US Treasury. We have companies looking to buy Bitcoin. Maybe other countries will try to buy Bitcoin and all this kind of stuff. So when this all does unfold, or countries start to actually buy Bitcoin, or companies get involved, there's going to be a supply shock, and that'll obviously most likely see Bitcoin rising very heavily in price. Knowing when all this is going to happen, or if it'll even happen, is obviously impossible to tell. But a lot of speculation at the moment is definitely occurring, mostly just because Trump was elected and everyone thinks that now he's going to be very pro Bitcoin, which he is, and so is RFK, and he's on his side. And they went to the Bitcoin conference and said they had their own plans of buying Bitcoin for the country. So very, very bullish news. And obviously from that, we've just seen an absolute soar from Bitcoin, moving from, it was about 67,000. Yeah, about 67,000 up to, I think we just hit 90K, which is 34% move, which is a huge move for Bitcoin. And this happened in such a short period of time as well. It also lines up with this chart very well, where we just hit the all-time high, saw this huge consolidation, we broke out, and then we came back down, found the support. Basically, Trump was elected, and then it was Bitcoin was off, and we saw this huge move from Bitcoin. And this is a really big move, and it hit the mid 70s, and people thought, okay, well, we're finally going to come back and retest this line, or at least retest the old all-time high, and Bitcoin just went again, which is, it's pretty huge. Like 90K is insane. I think a lot of people are just seriously confused. And with that, we've seen some altcoins obviously rally a lot. We've seen some altcoins not do as well. We've seen Ethereum sort of find its footing. It's at 3,200 at the moment. It's shown some improvement over compared to the last sort of 9 months, where it sort of bled quite a lot against Bitcoin. So people are speculating that now ETH Bitcoin is going to start to go on the up. We've seen Solana do very well, and there's also Solana ETF hype that people are speculating. So there's a lot of coins doing well, but there's also some coins that aren't doing that well, and there's some coins that are just not performing as well as Bitcoin. And this leads into Bitcoin dominance, which I think Bitcoin dominance is something that gets overlooked quite a lot, in my personal opinion, and I think I did for a while as well. And I think it's very relevant, because ultimately, as Bitcoin dominance rises, there's less money in comparison to the altcoins, in altcoins comparison to Bitcoin. But eventually, what typically you see is a shift. So if we pull up the Bitcoin dominance chart, what we typically see is that all of a sudden money flows from Bitcoin into altcoins. And we've seen that in the past with these very sharp moves, and you see altcoins basically have alt season, and altcoins go pretty crazy. So trying to time that is difficult, but I think the question is, I think altcoin season will occur. It's just a matter of when that'll actually happen. And a lot of people I do hear talk about 60% Bitcoin dominance is sort of that figure. So it's obviously impossible to actually know when this is going to occur. But I think soon, probably, altcoin season will finally actually happen. We'll see Ethereum also start to perform well, because I think Ethereum's obviously a really good asset, and a lot of altcoins will start to do well. But for the moment, there's many coins that aren't actually performing that well. And if we do see, this is the danger, is that if we do see a correction here from Bitcoin, you'll just see the altcoins go lower than what they were before. So they're just ultimately bleeding. Meanwhile, Bitcoin's putting in higher highs. So if Bitcoin were to go down, let's say 10%, that still puts Bitcoin at 78K, and you might see some altcoins go significantly lower than that. A couple of things to look at is the first one is this line here. So this is the last sort of bear market, but just coming out of the bear market. And once we broke out of this line, we saw obviously the COVID crash, and we did see one last plummet before finally Bitcoin took off and a lot of altcoins took off. So I think that's an important line to look at, because it's pretty much the same line as this, where Bitcoin was in this consolidation / downward trend. And then when people thought we were on the way up, we finally had one last shoot through that line. I don't know if we'll see that here, but I think a couple of things that must be taken into consideration. I think a retest of the all-time high or this support line is probably required, I think, or at least some sort of correction to find some footing, I guess. Bitcoin can't just be up only forever. It has to come down and find some support at some time. And it could just go to 95K or 100K, and then finally, 100K is obviously going to be a huge psychological barrier. So I would assume it'd be tough to just break through that. But when it's going to see this correction is tough. But this is obviously a big support line here, and the previous all-time high, and it would just be really healthy for the market as well. Like you just can't have Bitcoin go up and up and up so quickly. You would just see a blow off top. We won't see a long healthy cycle, and it will end up putting in a lower high than what it would if it went more progressively, which is something to consider. Another thing that I like to look at is RSI. I like to look at indicators like risk metrics. I think the relative strength index is really good, especially on I like to look at you go to a weekly time frame. You can sort of see what is this saying about the current position, the current state of the market. And you can see RSI, it isn't that high, especially compared to where we were about 8 months ago around here, where the RSI was, high 80s, and we're only currently at low 70s, even with this very sharp move. So a bit of consolidation in this range could bring this RSI down and be at a healthy level when Bitcoin, is trending between like 65 to 85K, would be pretty good. And when you look at the previous cycle as well, like the RSI did go as high as like 95 around this point here, which is pretty high. So like it still has some definite room for growth, and you see the same on the monthly RSI as well when we pull this up. So it's still low 70s, and in the last cycle it was hit 90, and the cycle before as well 95. So still a way to go, even at an all-time high price. Pretty much right now 87K, it went to 90. So we're pretty much at the all-time high price, and had a huge week, not even a month, but just a huge week. So this is very, very bullish in my opinion. But something to consider, given that even though 70 isn't super high, it's still not low, right? It's above 50, so it's a little bit high. You also have crypto fear and greed index. I think this is, this isn't the best indicator, but I think has some relevance. So we can see fear and greed is at 84 at the moment. I've got this chart here, which just sort of shows the fear and greed index over time. So I have it on the 1 year right now, and you can see it did go up to 90 in March, and obviously March, I change this here. March was when we put in that local top up here around this time. So the crypto fear and greed was pretty high, and then we went down up to about 25 and then back up. So even if you put in the max, you can see it only goes up to about 90, 95. So given that we're currently at 84, we are quite high. And this is obviously a direct result of Bitcoin putting in just a huge week with these huge green candles. So it is slightly dangerous, but it's a very difficult thing to approach right now. Like whether we do just shoot to 100K, which it has the potential to do, of course, especially with MicroStrategy picking up more Bitcoin. There's just so much bullish news in the media right now, and it just seems like you also have retail slowly getting in. Like if you look at Google Trends, Bitcoin's on the up. It just seems like there's so much bullishness, and just Bitcoin flying through all-time highs, gets so much attention from anyone who's relatively invested in Bitcoin. Even people that aren't even interested in investing will look at this and go, oh, maybe I should, get involved in this because it seems like Bitcoin's just shooting to the moon. So, but at the same time, even though it's so bullish, be fearful when others are greedy, which means that we could finally see the correction, which would be just healthy. It's nothing crazy. It's just a healthy correction. If we look at the Solana chart as well, Solana is obviously showing good strength, broke through the previous top here, and it's currently sitting right on the line. So it'd be pretty good to see a nice bounce here. It's going to be, very important to see what Bitcoin does. If Bitcoin charges here, then Solana will bounce perfectly, which would be pretty solid and quite a healthy chart as well. I think Solana is definitely one of my top picks. And if Solana gets the ETF approved, that's just going to get so much money flooding into Solana, and I think this is going to go quite high. And to break out of this bearish chart as well is to the upside pretty convincingly, right? Then we had the support right here and then bounced up. It's pretty bullish in my opinion. A couple of altcoins I want to look at which have pretty nice charts but still haven't performed that well is Injective. And Injective's had a good week, don't get me wrong. It's up, it's up 40% on the week, which is pretty good. But you got to consider that Injective did go down like 70%, whereas like Bitcoin did not go down 70%. So even though 40% is nice, it's still, it's not even halfway to its all-time high. It still needs another 123% pump just to get to this all-time high. But I do think Injective's a top pick. I've made a few videos talking about this. I mean, this chart in particular has shown pretty good strength, right, on this support line. 4 touches here, and then finally a huge bounce. Pretty important, pretty significant in my opinion, and I think Injective should just continue this upward trend. It's definitely a topic of mine. Another one that's pretty good, AI, is FET. Basically the exact same chart, like a big descending channel. As I said, with Injective, this also saw a massive downtrend, 76%. But this is also coming off a huge pump, which we all know about. And then pretty much the exact same thing happened here where we had four touches of the support line, held the support each time, and then finally had a nice pump. But still hasn't really seen a huge pump like Injective has. I mean, right now it's up 15%, and it did go up 40%, but recently it's seen a couple red candles, which is the danger that I talk about, which is if Bitcoin does see a drop to 80k, which is completely healthy and makes sense. You pull out the Bitcoin chart, like a move to 80k is completely fine, right? It doesn't look that bad. But what would that do for FET? Well, it'd probably bring it at least to this line, and then we would have to just hope the FET holds the support again before seeing a bounce, it's just the danger. And it's just like when I talk about Bitcoin dominance, is the thing you have to consider is that Bitcoin will have these big moves up and then come down, and then FET will not go as high up and will go further down until eventually you see that switch and you see altcoins have their season and have their run, and you'll see FET rally 30% when Bitcoin rallies, let's say 15%. And then when Bitcoin drops, FET won't drop as much. So something to consider, but I do still think FET is a top pick. As I always talk about, I think a lot of the coins that did well early in the cycle will go on to do well later in the cycle. FET, I mean, the AI sector has been performing very well. Meme coins have also performed very well. I think objectively, if you just look at those two sectors, I think have the best potential. And then you just have to pick those coins in those sectors. But FET still has quite a way to get to its all-time high. It's 167%. But then also I like to look at, well, how did FET even get to that price? When you look at it, FET just went basically nuts and pumped very quickly in a short period of time with not many consolidations, right? Even if you look at just here, it was up 474% in 34 days. Like, that's pretty crazy. And that's in this section here, which means, theoretically, it could put that in again, and we could see FET at $2 in just a couple of weeks, especially with Bitcoin doing what it's doing. If money does start to flow into altcoins, we could see coins like FET or Injective see these huge moves that we saw early in this cycle as well. So again, it's a pretty rough spot. I'm definitely wouldn't want to be taking on any leverage positions right now. I think it's far too risky. A correction is a correction looks like it is just required for the market, especially Bitcoin, just to maintain a healthy market. But at the same time, there's just so much bullish news out there, and the sentiment is just so bullish. And when you look at the fear and greed, everyone is so greedy right now that you're sort of in both camps where it's like, well, I don't know if it's going to 100k. I don't know if we're finally going to see that correction to the previous all-time high and get a retest of that and find support, which would be really good to maintain health in the market. But at the same time, who doesn't want 100k Bitcoin? And I don't want to obviously miss out if it does shoot to 100k. So I think that the key messages that I've sort of found in the last couple of days is just like, one, be patient, two, be careful, don't do anything silly right now, and just, yeah, I mean, it's a patient game. It always has been crypto, I believe. Find your top picks, find your altcoins, have a bag of Bitcoin, hopefully, and Ethereum and Solana. And yeah, let me know what you guys think of the current market. I'd love to hear everyone's opinion. It's definitely quite divided right now, and I think probably most people are just calling for 100k, which is dangerous. It can be dangerous for sure. So appreciate you guys watching. Have a good day.